Joining me now is Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota. Senator Klobuchar, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thanks, Chuck. Great to be on
again. You've been on the front lines in the Judiciary Committee of all of these actors that were inside the Supreme Court. So I want to start with, there's, I think from your perspective, two potential bad outcomes that may come out of this. And I guess the question is, which of the bad outcomes, in your view, would you prefer? A total overturn of Roe, or what Chief Justice Roberts seems to be hinting at, something that keeps Roe in name only or keeps some provision but still allows the 15-week ban?
Okay. First of all, I don't think that's going to happen. It appeared to me, listening to that argument, that the conservative justices were in a different place than Justice Roberts, that they clearly are headed toward overturning Roe. And in either case, even if you go with Justice Roberts' idea, so 14 weeks, 13 weeks, 12 weeks, it's a mess. You literally are going to go back to a time, if we don't do anything, I'll get to that in a minute, you're going to go back to a time of back alley abortions. You're going to go back to people are going to be busing from one state to another. 75% of Americans believe that this decision should be made between a woman and her doctor. 75% of Americans. This wasn't a case where the court was going with the changing mores of society. No, they are on their own. They're raw political power pushed those new justices onto the court, and this is going to be the outcome. And I would agree with your run-up to this. This is going to be about Americans standing up to assert their rights.
You don't believe if they allow the Mississippi law to stand within the framework of Roe, do you believe that means Roe is still legit? It's still relevant case law at that point?
Technically, yes. But in reality, what we've seen with these states, I mean, in Texas, they've literally enacted a law that says that neighbors can spy on neighbors and can be bounty hunters going after women just for exercising their right for health care. That's not the America that 80% of Americans want to see right now.
What do you make of Justice Kavanaugh's argument that the court should be neutral on abortion and essentially saying it should be up to the politicians? And I want to point something out. There's really only 3 countries in the world that have abortion rights that were sort of given to them by the courts. It's us, Canada, and Mexico.
Pretty significant countries.
No doubt. Most other countries, though, have done it either via their legislatures or via referendum. Should this be done that way? Is leaving it to the courts put us in a more vulnerable position on this?
I would turn this the other way. 50 years of precedent. As Elena Kagan pointed out, 50 years of decisions and court decisions, part of the very fabric of women's existence in this country. This is how our country protected rights. And now they're willing to just flip it on its head. And so what is the answer? The answer may well be doing it through the political process now. I don't think that's the right thing to do, but it may be the way to do it. And I think the best way to do it is not a patchwork of state laws, but to codify Roe v. Wade, put it into law. And we even have some pro-choice Republicans that have signaled interest in doing that.
I want to put up the Minnesota law, and I'm just curious if you think this is a way to start as a baseline. The restrictions that are most notable in Minnesota, which has, I think, the state constitution guarantees a right to abortion in Minnesota. The state-directed counseling followed by a 24-hour waiting period, parental notification for minors, and I believe it's 24 weeks that you're allowed to have abortion. Is that what you think the federal baseline should be, essentially?
Actually, I think the federal baseline is the bill that we've put together, the Women's Health Protection Act, which would basically put Roe v. Wade into law. But Minnesota, I'm glad that that is in our law. I think we have long believed that people have the choice. We have one of the highest rates of international adoption. That's one choice. Another choice is being a mom. Another choice is actually making a decision with your doctor that you're going to terminate a pregnancy. Those are choices in our state. But I don't think that having state by state by state, and literally, you know very well, Chuck, based on what we've seen out of Texas and Alabama, that a huge swath of the country, women are going to be denied that right to make their own choice. And I don't think that's the answer. I think the answer is putting it into federal law. Of course, the ultimate answer would be to uphold 50 years of precedent and the court doing the right thing.
All right. This bill needs 60 votes in the Senate. Is there a way, besides getting rid of the filibuster, to lower that threshold? Could you find a way with Medicaid or Medicare funding, different ways to make it a 50-vote threshold?
Well, as you know, we're looking at the rules of the Senate right now, and in the context of the all-important issue, the Freedom to Vote Act, the bill I lead that has every Democrat in the Senate supporting it. And one of the things we've realized is that I would abolish the filibuster. But even if you keep the filibuster in place, over time, there have been 160 some carve-outs to the filibuster. The rules have changed over and over. Even Robert Byrd himself said that rules should change to fit the circumstances of their time.
The rule for codifying Roe?
Well, this would be some change to the Senate rules, and it most likely would not be this particular issue. Right now, we're really focused on voting rights.
You think voting rights is the carve-out?
It would be
a
standing filibuster, a way to actually put this out there for the American public so that people would be required to be in the chamber and actually debate things and come up with an outcome at some point. Because right now, if the Republicans want to go into this election, which I think does look at where we're heading, the American people are going to decide. Do they want to go with a political party that has gotten them through this pandemic, that has gotten the vaccines out, that believes in science over misinformation on Facebook? Or are they going to go with a political party that's trampling on the freedom of women's rights, trampling on the freedom to vote, will not vote to reduce prescription drug costs, will not be there for your child care? There are going to be, all of this is going to be on the ballot in this election.
Let me ask you, though, some of the political ramifications. This is something you said during your presidential campaign about pro-life Democrats. Take a listen.
I believe we're a big tent party, and there are pro-life Democrats, and they are part of our party. And I think we need to build a big tent. I think we need to bring people in instead of shutting them out.
You know, I think one of the reasons why we had stability on this issue is that in the 70s and 80s, a third of Democrats were pro-life, a third of Republicans were pro-choice, and there was this sort of, freeze, if you will. Now there's a pretty stark partisan divide. Does that make it harder to have pro-life Democrats in the party?
I don't think so. We still have people that come up to me all the time in my state say, I don't agree with you on that issue, but I agree with you on this issue. I still think there is clearly room in our party for pro-life Democrats. You also have people, many people, that is their personal view, but they don't believe that they should impose it on other people, that people should be able to make their own choices. So my view on that hasn't changed. But what I think you've seen change is the Supreme Court in a very dramatic fashion. When raw politics got these last justices on, and you see the raw political outcome.
Are you now more open to packing the court?
I've always been open to looking at the numbers of justices on the court, but I think the most sane route to get this done right now would be to bring this up before the U.S. Senate to codify Roe v. Wade into law.
Is that something that you think is a debate that's going to happen sooner rather than later, or do you have to wait till June?
Well, let's see what the court does first.
All right. Senator Amy Klobuchar, Democrat from Minnesota.
It's great to be on, Chuck. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.